Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today is Wednesday. See where we're at here in Moodle. So it's the 19th. So we are in Chapter 5 still, segmentation, targeting, and positioning. We'll be wrapping up the content today for Chapter 5. On Friday, we'll be meeting in the lab again on the third floor, so we won't be coming to class. If anyone comes, just go to the lab. We'll be having the lab day once again to work on the entrepreneur exercises and the entrepreneurial marketing plan. So let's go ahead and get on into the rest of this chapter. So on Monday we left off with selecting target segments, and we'll just pick back up with this today. Okay, if you properly select your target segments, you're more likely to be successful. I think that's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand there. The whole point in wanting to reach these customers is to be able to satisfy their needs and their wants and desires. So if we can place them into segments and be able to identify what those needs, the wants, desires, and all that are, the better chance, obviously, we have at creating a product or a service that's gonna tailor to those needs, or it's gonna fit those needs. So obviously, the better we select our target segments, the more likely we are to be successful. And it also says you cannot chase too many rabbits. You need to focus on catching one. So the scope of what we want, as far as our target markets, needs to be realistic, and it needs to be a decent size, but not too small. Right here it says you need to focus on catching one. Um, Too narrow of a target equals failure to reach the volume of sales and profit. Obviously, if we only are, say for example, if there's 1,000 people, if we're only going to target 10 of them, then obviously our sales and profits not going to be nearly as large as it would have been if we would have reached out to other people. Because obviously their goal is to be able to have that reach, right? We just want to be able to do it in a cost effective way, to where the cost benefit is it doesn't the benefit doesn't or the cost doesn't outweigh the benefit of our reach. Too broad of a target equals spreading your market efforts too thin and incurring greater expense. Obviously, the more people you try to reach, the different channels you have to use, and the expenses begin to incur, and it can become very costly, especially for startup entrepreneurs, because usually they're working on a very limited amount of funds. Um, so that's just a little review of where we left off on Monday. We're going to just keep on talking a little bit more about selecting target segments. Successful entrepreneurs consider the size of the segment, the expected growth, competitive position, cost of reaching a segment, and compatibility with your venture's objective and resources. So why would the size of the segment be of interest?
Just so you don't chase too many rabbits or chase too little.
Right. So we really want to be concerned about that size, because that size is ultimately going to tell us how much capital we need to operate, or how many goods or services we actually have to be able to offer to that size of the segment. Expected growth rate, that's going to be important, because if the entrepreneur is looking to go into a market, then obviously if the expected growth rate is a good thing, if it's expected to grow, then the chances are to be a better market or a better segment to enter into, because people are going to be continuing to purchase and become more interested in your product and stuff. Whereas on the flip side, if it's not expected to grow much, then people are going to be moving out of that market. Maybe market share is being stolen from a competitor, where they made a hybrid version of a good or something, so that people are leaving that market. So the expected growth rate is really important. Your competitive position is going to be really important, because ultimately, depending on where your competitive position is, the competitors can actually come in and force you out of business. Like if you're only really good at one or two things, chances are the competitor can come in and kind of imitate that or copy it, and steal your market share, and kind of make you a thing of the past. So you want to make sure we have a good competitive position. So meaning, are we gonna beat them on price, and have about the same amount of quality? We're gonna beat them on the actual quality of the product, or are we gonna be faster? Better customer service, whatever it might be. So whatever our competitive position is, it's good to note that the best way to try to get a competitive position is to try to do like a hybrid approach and try to have good customer service, try to be efficient, make sure you have a good quality good with a decent price, just pretty much all across the board. And that can tie into as well with just your competition in general. Like I said before, if the more things you're good at, the less chance the competitor can come in and imitate what you're doing or make you less relevant within that market. So it's good to really focus on your competitive position and think about what type of a framework you want to use to be able to sustain your competitive position. The cost of reaching a segment is obviously going to be extremely important. If a segment is too expensive for an entrepreneur, then obviously he's going to need to either determine means of raising capital and obtaining loans, or he needs to just choose a different segment, something that is within his reach or within his budget. So the cost is something that's going to be really important there, and the cost could include anything from buying your software, your buildings, your vehicles, whatever it might be, or other of your other barriers to entry. Gosh, am I sorry, head went blank. And compatibility with your venture's objectives and resources. So I think this one's really important. The compatibility of your venture. A lot of times, people tend to want to get into stuff that's just the most lucrative venture, right? And that really might not be something that they're the most compatible with. Money is very important, but I think the most successful entrepreneurs have just followed a passion, and they really just have a desire to want to bring a certain good or service to market. They really have a passion for helping people or trying to make their lives better, or just maybe they want to be known as being an inventor or someone of that sort. Um, so you really want to pick a segment or a venture that you're going to be compatible with, because the chances are if you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to be more passionate about it, you're going to be more driven, you're going to have more focus on it, you're going to spend more time on it, and you're going to be less likely to give in and just say, okay, I'll quit, because it's something you're passionate about. Obviously, your venture's objectives need to line up with the resources that you have. Say so. If I was I'm trying to obtain my CPA license. So once I get my CPA license, it wouldn't make much sense for me to try to open a law firm, right? I mean, I didn't pass my bar. I didn't go to law school. I'm in a whole other industry, so it really wouldn't serve me well. I don't really know the industry like that. So it wouldn't do me very well to open a law firm, because all I'm gonna do is try to just pay a bunch of attorneys to practice, and hopefully they work for me, which isn't the case, because everyone knows that professionals practice together. They join forces together. Doctors join with other doctors, lawyers join with other lawyers, accountants with other accountants, so on and so forth. But that's a little off track there. But anyways, the main thing is stick with what you're good at and stick with what you know, stick with what you like. Not saying you can't research something new and get into something new, but just follow your passion and stick with what you're good at. If you're good at accounting, chances are you need to stick within accounting. Um, so just compatibility is very important. Undifferentiated marketing. This does not distinguish between any segments and go after the market as a whole using one marketing mix. And this type of marketing, it assumes no differences among segments. It can keep your costs down, and it's also known as mass marketing. So obviously mass marketing is a perfect name for it. So we're not differentiating between segments. We're pretty much saying, okay, for example, I guess what's a good thing? Let's just say like food. Let's say just a cheap fast food restaurant like McDonald's per se. They can pretty much market to anybody. I mean, you've got people that probably billionaires eat there, all the way down to people that are on welfare. It's a tried and true name. It's been around for a long time. It's not the most healthy for you, but they could really just market pretty much to anybody on that platform, because people have kids, they like the kid meals, so maybe the adults don't want them, they prefer a better quality food, but they'll take their kid there to get them a little Happy Meal with some chicken nuggets or something. So um, McDonald's can pretty much mass market, because the segments, they're pretty much reaching the same type of segments. A lot of people have kids, and all different sorts of demographics would be interested in something of that sort. Maybe they're just in a hurry, they have to run through it and grab something real quick. So undifferentiated marketing. If you're gonna take this approach, then obviously the good or service that you're trying to sell or bring to market needs to be something that would be pretty parallel across segments, because you're not differentiating between them. You're just saying, okay, here's my good or service. Either you like it or you don't. It's just, I'm using one marketing mix, one framework. This is what it is. So undifferentiated marketing is just mass marketing. You're just trying to reach all segments, and you're treating them all the same. Pretty simple, right? Not bad. Okay, selecting target segments. Differentiated marketing, obviously different from undifferentiated. So in this case, we're gonna target more than one segment and design specific marketing mixes for each segment. This is used when developing unique products or services. So obviously, if we're trying to tailor it to a certain segment, then we're going to use differentiated marketing because we want to tailor it to each of the segments. It accounts for the differences between segments. Obviously, if we're tailoring a product or service towards a segment, then there's going to be differences between segments, and we're going to account for that. And obviously, it's catering to each segment. So, differentiated, focusing on segments; undifferentiated, just the whole entire focus. Another way to look at it too is just think of that micro macro level. The micro level, you're thinking of all the segments as a whole. The micro level, you're just itemizing them and picking them that way. Concentrated marketing. This is the most common strategy. In this type, you select one segment and tailor your marketing toward that one singular segment. This is also known as a niche strategy. So just finding a little niche market. As we said, you might find a segment, but then find a niche within that segment. So now we're really just focusing our scope down, and just focusing on just that one little segment, tailored towards that one singular segment. So entrepreneur is seeking a smaller segment, and it's appropriate for a startup with limited resources. So it makes sense. If we have limited resources, then this is obviously going to be a good choice here to just focus in on one single segment, because we can really just try to develop one good or service that's going to really help this one single segment. And from there, if it becomes successful, then we can try to start growing and expanding into other segments. So difference between undifferentiated, differentiated, and concentrated, I think, is pretty simple. Undifferentiated, your scope is just all the segments. Differentiated, you're just targeting different segments. And then concentrated, you're just picking one little niche out of a segment and just focus on it. So not bad. Advances in technology are also enabling entrepreneurs to appear as concentrated marketers. Mass customization is where tailoring products and services to the needs and tastes of individual customers on a high volume scale. And then the next thing is the ultra customizers. I think a good example of this would be like the mass customization. Remember, gosh, I don't even know how long it's been. It's probably been 15, 20 years ago. It might be even longer than that. But Nike started a thing to where you can actually go to their website and design your own sneakers. So you can go in and pick what color they want to be, what designs are on them, and pretty much anything, as long as you got the swoop on it. I think as long as you still see their trademark or their logo. But it's done by the mass though, because it's offered on a website for the whole world to see. You can either just buy their product, or you can go in there and just customize it. So they actually they tailor the needs to the specific customer. So it's just mass customization. So it's kind of dealing with a niche market, but dealing it obviously in a mass amount of ways. So that's a good example of mass customization, is how Nike allowed their customers to customize their own shoes. Factors that influence the type of market segmentation strategy: market sensitivity, product variability, product life cycle, venture size and venture resources, and competitor strategies. Obviously, all of these, we could see how they could influence the type of market segmentation strategy. Market sensitivity. So how sensitive is the market? Does it respond really quick to new items? Does it if something goes wrong with the product, are they going to be a recurring customer? Are they that sensitive? Are they just going to leave the market instantly and go somewhere else? So how sensitive is the market? Product variability. How many variables of that product are out there? Pretty much, just how many different products are out there that you have to compete with. The product's life cycle, that's really big because this can have a direct correlation with recurring revenue. If you create a product that never breaks down, then chances are you're not going to get any recurring revenue. If you make a machine, say if we're selling a machine or a manufacturer, and the product life cycle is indefinite, then we better have a servicing plan to go out and say, hey, when we sell a servicing plan and require that the machine be serviced like every 3 years or every year, so we can get that service revenue. So product life cycle is very important. So obviously we need to be familiar with that. Venture size and venture resources obviously is very key. Um, that can tie directly in with competition. Obviously, the bigger you are, the more money you are, the more control you can have of a segment and more market share you can gain. You can push competitors out because you just have more control. You have more power. With money, you can sell better products at a lower price than your competition. So obviously, venture size and venture resources is important. It affects what type of marketing strategy you can have. Just the whole scope of your operations is affected by your size and your resources. The last thing it says here, competitive strategy. Obviously, that's going to be important. Um, we always want to know what the competitors are doing because we can try to see weaknesses or see what they're doing really well and just try to imitate that, or try to build off their weaknesses and try to make something that's better. So competitor strategies is also very important. So next we'll get into the last part of positioning. After segments have been analyzed and selected, you must determine how to position your offering to the target market. So positioning refers to the place that the product or service will occupy in the hearts or minds of the customers in relation to the competitors. So pretty much just exactly what it said, positioning. What are your customers going to think about your product or service once you market it, or once you bring it to market? How are they going to relate? Let's say if you make tennis shoes, how are they going to relate that to Nikes or Reeboks or dress shoes or Clarks, whatever shoes you might wear. So positioning, pretty much what the perception the customer has of your product in relation to other products that are on the market. You must connect your intended position to the unique desired benefits of the customer. Obviously, the intended position, you want to make sure that the position we have is where customers, we're in that product mix to where they want to buy, right? And hopefully they'll select it. So we want to position ourselves to where we're desirable to our customers for the most part. You must distinguish your product or service from the competitive offerings. Obviously, we need something that's going to make us stick out, because obviously if we're just bringing another set of shoes to market and don't really say, hey, well, this shoe's better because maybe it's lighter or more comfortable or more durable, whatever it might be, then chances are people aren't just going to just come buy your product for no reason if they're already happy with the status quo. So we need to do something to distinguish our product or service from the competitive offerings. If your product or service is seen as the same as another on the market, the customer has no real reason to buy it. Two basic approaches to positioning: head-to-head and direct competition with other products or services. A good example is Pepsi versus Coke. Pretty much a direct trade-off. There is some differences in it, but pretty much they're going head-to-head for market share. They're in the same industry and direct competition with one another. The other basic approach to positioning would be avoiding direct competition through differentiation. The example here is Crest toothpaste versus Tom's of Maine. Tom's of Maine was an all organic, healthy, environmental type toothpaste that they came out with, whereas Crest is just your basic, your normal toothpaste. So everyone knows what that is. So difference there, head to head. Obviously, Pepsi and Coke's not alike. Not the most healthy, for you. So same competition there. And then obviously differentiation is trying to be like the organic as opposed to non-organic, something like that. It's just maybe more worried about the environmental. You might drive an energy efficient car as opposed to a diesel car or a gas guzzler or something like that, like a Hummer or something like that. Hybrid positioning is competing on multiple dimensions: lowest price, best quality, most convenient, best customer service rather than just one. And once again, this makes it more difficult for the competitors to dislodge you and take your positions. So once again, the hybrid positioning is probably your best bet. Just trying to be good at numerous things instead of just honing in on one, because it helps hold your position within that segment. The next one is perceptual mapping. The key to the effective positioning is understanding the perceptions customers have of product categories and brands within those categories. So pretty much just knowing what people's perceptions are with stuff that's already on the market is going to give you a better understanding as to how happy they really are with what's out there, and see if there's room for you to make a dent into that market. So just seeing how people perceive other goods and services that are out there. So to determine the right position for your product, you must have the following information: the purchase criteria deemed important by customers, customer ratings of existing brands, and what an ideal brand would offer. And from that information, you can construct a perceptual map. So obviously, like I said, the perceptual map is just trying to see what people's thoughts are on what's out there already, and trying to think on how you can hit the market. So obviously the purchase criteria, that's important to customers. So why are they buying it? How they feel about stuff that's out there, and pretty much what would be a good brand. So what's missing with what's already out there is pretty much obviously is how we determine that perceptual map, by answering those questions. It's a means of displaying customer perceptions of alternative products and brands. It provides a visual awakening of the space occupied by the various brands, and if there is any particular valuable space for your product to occupy. So once again, this perceptual mapping is, like I said, it's just looking at the stuff that's already out there, seeing what the customers think about it, what they think could be better about it, and just why they're buying it in the first place. So the whole why of why they're interested in what's out there. The health bar example, the book had a good example of this. If everyone would look at, if they have their book with them, it's on page 96 on figure 5.2 at the bottom. And this is just an example of a perceptual map for the health bar market. So what this young entrepreneur did pretty much was just take some of the bars that were already out there on the market, and on the left you can see is how healthy the bar is. On the right, or on the bottom, is going to be the taste. So obviously we can see Snickers on the bottom right. It tastes the best, but it's the least healthy. Whereas Power Bar is the most healthy, but it tastes the worst. Cliff Bar falls in between there, the Luna Bar. So the opportunity he's seen was a great taste, health, and energy. So what he's seen there was a lack of a good tasting, healthy bar. So by just plotting this on a perceptual map, he could see the products that were out there, where they fell as far as the health and the taste goes. So his goal was to try to find something in the middle there. So with that information, he's seen there's the market was lacking a power bar that tasted really good. So he was able to focus on creating a bar that tasted good, more like a candy bar instead of a health bar. So that's just a visual of what the actual perceptual map would look like if you do it. Very simple. It's not hard to do, but it's always better, I think, if you get a visual of something instead of just hearing the description of it. Okay, remember, your positioning should be distinctive and consistent. Your positioning must set off your brand product from competitors. Positioning is not a one-time exercise. And competitors change and evolve. So because competitors change and evolve, they have to change and evolve because the industry and the forces around them are always changing and evolving with technology and different generations coming and going, and fads coming and going, and stuff of that sort. So regulations, different government officials, coming and going. So the economy and just the world around us is always evolving. So obviously we have to be always evolving. Our competitors are always evolving. So therefore, that's what it's saying. Positioning is not a one-time exercise. It's a continuous thing. It's an ongoing thing, because just because we have a position today doesn't mean the position is going to hold tomorrow. So we have to think, okay, with this changing environment, this always a changing environment, how can I keep up with this? How can I stay ahead of the curve with all this stuff? So positioning is a constant thing. Obviously, it needs to be distinctive and consistent because that's what's going to keep us ahead of that curve. And obviously, we want to pull ourselves away from the competition. So just the main thing is remember things are always changing, and you need to always stay up on your research. You need to always try to stay one up on your competitors so you can have that advantage and get that market share. Positioning involves real differences or perceived differences. So we don't really have to be selling a good or service that is any different than our customers. But if it's not any different, we need to at least make them perceive that there's something different. So your product may not have any real differences compared to your competitor, but you can still create a perception of a difference. They've got here the beer example, and the book went on to explain what this means. Pretty much they're saying that people that are regular beer drinkers that just drink on a regular, and they're really like just tied to a brand, like say some people really like Coors Light, some like Bud Light, some like Mick Ultra or whatever it might be. What they said was these people that were like die hard and loyal to their brand, if you blindfolded them and had them do a taste, that there really wasn't that much of a distinctive difference between those type of beers, you know. But the people who sold it, you know, made you perceive that there was a difference. Like Coors Light's cold as the Rockies, so it's like it's the coldest beer you'll ever drink in your life, you know. Budweiser, it's the king of beers, you know. It's like better, I guess, than all the other beers. Mick Ultra, you got less carbs and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, if you blindfold them, it's not going to really taste that much different. So that's why they're using the beer example there. The whole point is just know that positioning can involve real differences or perceived differences. So if your product is not any different, just make the customer perceive that it is actually different, so they're more attracted to your product as opposed to one that's identical by another competitor. Obviously, this says group activity. We're not gonna do it as a group, but this would be pretty much a good time if you're working on your entrepreneurial marketing plan, as you should be, to maybe do a perceptual map of your product and service, try to tie in some of the stuff with the lessons. So that's my hope with introducing that entrepreneurial marketing plan early, is as we cover ground, you're doing you're doing within your marketing plan what we've done in class as we go about building it. So hopefully you're working right along with that. That wraps up chapter 5. So that's it for that. Next week we'll be getting into chapter 6, developing new products and services. Remember, this Friday we will not have class in the class for a lecture. We'll be in the lab on the 3rd floor. Please, everyone, remember that this entrepreneurial exercise for chapter 4, or I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. That was for chapter 5. Remember, the entrepreneurial exercise for chapter 4 is due in 4 days and 15 hours. It's due this Sunday, February 23rd at 11:59 p.m. And remember, this one for chapter 5 is due next Sunday. Same one, sorry. Yeah, so chapter 5 will be the next Sunday. So we have plenty of time to get these in still. Just make sure everyone's getting these in. Any questions on anything we've covered so far?
I don't think so.
Straightforward, pretty easy. Well, that's all for today. I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you for your time. And remember, Lab Day on Friday, and we'll be starting chapter 6 on Monday. Thank you.